Hi, everybody. Welcome to Divot. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined by my mentor and golf coach, Hugh Marr. So Hugh's been an elite coach for, well, longer than I think
Ever.
he
Too long.
Yeah, for many decades, I suppose. A couple of decades you've been out and teaching on tour and taught golfers of all abilities. And from what I can tell from the practice that I've observed from you achieve fantastic results with your players. And I think many people, many golfers, many coaches could learn a lot from you. So thank you for joining me, Hugh.
I hope so. No, it's a pleasure. Nice to be here.
So I thought what we could work on or talk about today would be practice. And how people can improve their practice. What are the easy wins that people can be looking to? Because what I think I see is a lot of people changing their golf swings, a lot of people doing a lot of the harder stuff and not thinking about how they implement the change. Sometimes they don't even need to make a change. It's just how they practice better. So if you're up for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like any coaching process, and I see it with the work I do with coaches as well, that the people that get the best results are those that engage most in the process. And obviously that process is helped a great deal if they've got good advice from a good coach. But ultimately identifying what you need to get better at and then having a structure around how to get better. And that structure doesn't need to be particularly long-winded or fancy. It can be very simple indeed. And certainly a lot of the lesson notes and the prescriptions I write for my clients are very simple. They're 2 or 3 bullet points. Yeah. I think we've got to identify what it is that the golfer wants, first of all, because not all practice is created equal. So you have golfers out there whose goal is to bring their handicap down. That's probably the majority of the people that we deal with. When I'm looking at that, I'm saying, okay, well, where's the simplest win for you to reduce your handicap? Probably for most people, that would be getting better from 6 feet in, as an example.
Yeah.
We also have golfers that want to make their golf swing look pretty. Very few of them, thankfully, and generally that wears off the minute they make it look prettier and it doesn't work so well. Yeah. And then you've got the golfers that just want to hit better shots. They don't really care about their score, but they want to go out and be competitive with their friends. They want to go out and not make a fool of themselves. So really the practice prescription that we write as coaches has to take into account what the student is looking for at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Good practice for me is built around what that player needs to do to get better on their terms. If it's a prettier swing, it will look like this. If they want to score lower, it would look completely different. Yeah. And then obviously encouraging the student and the student taking responsibility and ownership and going away and doing that, being engaged in the process.
Yes, I agree with that completely. I think, like you said, most people want to improve their scores, improve the results that they get. I know that there are those exceptions as well. But let's say we're speaking to that person who wants to lower their scores and get better. And you said about, identifying what that person then needs. How would that process begin for you?
Well, I'm very much, I guess I'd say, a ball flight first coach, that I'm looking to find the least invasive way to help players improve their impact and subsequently their ball flights. Yeah. So that prescription, my advice is going to look very different to every player. Let's be honest, most club players would benefit from learning to hit the ground after the ball. That's probably 90% of the work I do with players of all standards. It's really not exclusive to club players. That's something that I spend a lot of time trying to do with tour pros and elite amateurs as well. But if we look at it from a statistical point of view, for your average 15 handicap who maybe hits 2, 3, 4 greens around, for every additional green in regulation they can hit, they're probably going to reduce their score by about 1.5 shots.
Yeah.
And that obviously then boils down to, well, what does their golf swing do from tee to green? Have they got the opportunity to hit it on more greens? If they don't, because their driving's the problem, we focus on their driving. Yeah. But I have a kind of formula, if you like, for all golfers. I mean, this applies to everyone. I was talking about this morning on another podcast, that they need to be what I call an effective driver of the ball. So do their distance and accuracy complement one another? So if you're a fairly short player, are you hitting it down the middle every time? If you're a long player, you get a little bit more leeway. If that's the case, then what is it about their approach play that's costing them greens in regulation? Now, being completely honest, the majority of club golfers could probably improve their score by hitting more greens, just simply understanding how far they carry each club.
Yeah.
The fact that you once hit a 7-iron 165 yards through the air, downwind, taking a bounce off a sprinkler head, that doesn't mean that you hit it 165 or 170 yards with a 7-iron.
Yeah.
Being completely honest with carry distances, which is so simple to practice, but being completely honest with carry distances is probably the single biggest fault I see in club players.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, if you look at your basic stats and work from an 18 handicapper to Scotty Scheffler hits it past the flag more often than anyone else. Fact.
Yeah.
In fact, the only golfer who hit it past the flag more than Scotty Scheffler was Tiger Woods.
Right.
And for whatever reason, club players generally, the only instance they'd hit it through the green is if they knife a wedge shot.
Yeah.
So understanding that, no, you do get freaks. You do get a 15 handicapper who hits 6 greens and really struggles with the putting or with their chipping. But the simple message is, if you want to reduce your handicap, what's the single biggest barrier? Now, the truth is, most players, it's tee to green. It's their ability to strike a golf ball properly.
Yeah.
But we do have to take into account that there are outliers who are actually better than their handicap tee to green, and the wins would be found somewhere else.
Of course, yeah. Everyone's individual, but generally speaking, the green in regulation, I think, is the highest correlation to score, if I remember right. And club golfers overwhelmingly end up short of the green, and the higher their handicap, the more short of the green percentage-wise they end up being. So your point to understanding their distances is probably the single most important factor a golfer can understand.
I think so.
So then the challenge is then from our point of view as coaches is how do we tackle that problem? So for golfers, there's a lot of ego attached to how far they hit that 7-iron. How do we tackle that? And then perhaps how does a player go about really finding out their distances in the real world? So a lot of people use electrical ranges these days to find their distances. I find that doesn't often or always correlate to distance out on the golf course. Obviously, there's more factors involved. So how would you start that process? If I agree with you, I think that's the biggest thing, the simplest thing that people can do.
Well, first of all, encourage them to take a lesson. Secondly, there's, and this is more sort of, I guess, a tactic from a coaching perspective, that simply telling someone that they only hit their 7-iron 140 yards, the message generally doesn't land.
No.
So I much prefer to prove to them that it doesn't go 160 yards. Now, the way I tend to do that is I gather a lot of data for all my students, and before I do any work with them, and I'll basically take the average, take the mean, say, well, this is how far you carry that club. And they'll say, well, I carry 160 yards in the golf course. Okay, so let's do a test. And the first time round, they'll underclub every single time. So I'll pull up a TrackMan and use their testing facility. They'll underclub every time, and they'll hit lots of good shots that don't go the distance.
No.
Then the second time, I'll ask them, it'd be a 10-shot test, so it doesn't take a great deal of time. The second time around, I'll offer to caddy for them.
Okay.
And then we can take that process further and take out normalization. And so the player now has to adjust for wind, temperature, elevation change. And if you combine those two, the carry distance and the ability to manage the climate and the conditions, if you get them right, you're going to give them more than the green around.
Yeah.
And you haven't changed their golf swing.
No, exactly. You've already improved their score, done nothing.
Yeah.
Except
now, if they don't hit functional shots, we have to improve their golf swing.
Yeah.
And that's a different kind of golf lesson.
Yes. Do you think that then a lot of golfers, okay, so understanding that their ego inflates how far they hit it, but perhaps they're not reading, that's why you going to the golf course is so important, but not reading the shot well enough. the lie, the situation, that more often than not, it has a negative impact on how far you hit the ball. For example, if the ball's sitting down a little bit, or if the
well, generally, the better a player becomes, the more able or the more gifted he is at adjusting and figuring out what the right shot and the right yardage is.
Yeah.
But again, it's not something that's necessarily ever taught. And it's something you see a lot in this country when you're coaching people in the winter and the ball's going significantly shorter when they do in the summer. And obviously with TrackMan technology, we're able to adjust for conditions or not.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that a lot of golfers neglect, and a lot of coaches neglect it as well. Because ultimately, we've got golfers there who hit a lot of good shots that don't go on the green, and that has to be down to one thing.
Yeah.
But increasing the awareness for the golfer is probably the most important place to start.
Yeah.
Are they aware of the fact that a 10-mile-an-hour wind is probably going to be a club and a half? A lot of golfers they're not even aware that they're playing into the wind.
No, they can't feel the wind. No, they can't see the wind.
Yeah.
I agree. So that comes back around to your point about, striking the ball, hitting the ground in the appropriate place. I think a lot of this is lost just misstriking the golf ball. And people, I don't think, are aware of that. They'll just see it go left or right or come short and won't necessarily consider, the fault was the strike and not necessarily where the face was pointing or what club I chose or whatever it was. So.
Agree. It's if you hit the middle of the club consistently and hit the ground after the ball consistently, it's very unusual to see someone with a significant right and left dispersion. Yeah. Very unusual. Generally, the missed shot will be a consistent miss.
Perfect. So I prepared a couple of questions that I'd like to go through.
I'm ready.
So the first question that I would like to know is if golf had never invented driving ranges, if you couldn't go down to a commercial range where you get a basket of balls and you're hitting out of a range bay, what would practice look like, do you think? Would it be better? Would it be worse?
I think it would be different. I mean, I think it's not necessarily the facilities that are at fault. It's how people choose to use the facilities. Okay. There's obviously shortcomings because all driving ranges are off a mat, which tends to flatter bad strikes. A lot of driving ranges have square mats, which are aiming in a very specific place, and golfers tend to default to just hitting square to the mat. Yeah. When I grew up, I mean, this is me showing my age now, Steve, that when I grew up, I was very lucky in that I had a huge, effectively, practice field. But I had to hit my own golf balls. Okay. And that meant that if I hit 100 6-irons, getting them closer together made it easier to pick the balls up.
Yeah.
And I turned that into a practice game where if I hit it further than 15 yards left or right, long and short, I would go and pick all my balls up and start again. Mm. So it forced me to be creative with my practice, and it also forced me to practice in different directions rather than just constantly square to the mat.
Yeah.
Would it look any different? I don't know. I mean, we've got so many challenges out with just the facility itself. Obviously, land is at a premium in the UK. If I were to build the perfect practice facility, it would probably be circular. It would probably all be off grass. But we have to be realistic.
Not commercially viable.
I mean, I worked at a facility for 2 or 3 years earlier on in my career that had a big, expansive driving range with lots of different tee options, but it also had a practice field. I'd take all of my students to the practice field. I never used the driving range unless it was raining.
Yeah.
Because you're hitting off grass, which is a bit more realistic. You can also adjust targets, and I think golfers become a little bit more tuned into the strike when they're hitting off grass, and because they're hitting off grass for whatever reason, they become a little bit more tuned into target and the ball flights. So there's other benefits to the student as well. Yeah. But it's a hard one because the reality is that playing golf and using a driving range are so far removed. Remember a Jose Mourinho quote about training. And he said, well, the best way to train to become a world-class footballer is to play football against world-class players.
Yeah.
There's no point in going and practicing the piano in a hope that you're going to become a better footballer.
Yeah.
And It's very difficult because you also now have a generation of golfers around the world where because ranges are more interactive, they may never ever go to a golf course. They could play top golf for the rest of their life. They could play in a simulator for the rest of their life.
That's it. Yeah.
But using golf courses practice is probably the most effective way to improve scoring skills.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I think too, perhaps maybe like Formula One and how someone would improve their driving, they'd be doing circuits, doing laps, improving this. But the trouble I think golf has is that to play a game of golf, most of it is walking. And so in the moments where you're actually thinking about what the shot that's coming up and executing the shot, you could probably count that in minutes as what took an hours to play a game of golf. And so the driving range brings a convenience that you can repeat the action. But thinking to what that is like for a Formula One driver, you're not practicing the right lines, you're not practicing the right mentality, you're not practicing race conditions, so you're not going to be really improving a lot of your aspect of driving. You could perhaps improve your timing of when you might change gears, or you might change the certain accelerations and speeds in certain places, but you can't actually.
No, and I think when it comes to the actual playing of the game of golf, as you point out, it's incredibly time consuming. There's not many golf courses where you can go out on your own and hit 4 shots every single hole.
No.
And there's a logic to being able to use driving ranges. You can get more volume of shots, and there is definitely a correlation between good quality repetition and improvement.
Yeah.
But to assume that just good quality repetition is going to be sufficient to improve your golf, you're probably missing something.
Yeah. Do you think the dawn of simulator golf is going to bridge that gap where you could do a lot, not everything, of course, but you could do a lot more on a simulator in terms of preparing for a game of golf versus a practice ground, and like in terms of efficiency, time spent versus what you get out of it? Does that open up more opportunities for people? Because I think we're seeing a bit of a boom in simulator facilities.
Oh, massively. I mean, I think, yes, it's at the end of the day, very worst case, you're hitting a drive, then you're hitting an iron, then you're hitting a chip, then you're hitting a putt. Now, you could argue that the putting is not particularly realistic, same with the chipping. Yeah. But if we're trying to hit more greens in regulation, and ultimately, the sim will probably give the student better feedback on carry distance.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Okay, next question then. If you had to erase one belief about practice from every golfer's mind, what would it be?
I'm only allowed one.
Yeah, let's stick to one.
Okay. That volume of shots is the solution to getting better. Repetition is the solution. It's part of the solution. And I mean, there was the famous... The famous 10,000 hours study that was done, I think, maybe 25 years ago now. And everyone picked up on the fact that 10,000 hours was the key to becoming better. Missing the crucial point. The caveat is it's 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. So 10,000 hours in itself is not going to be sufficient. 10,000 hours of deliberate would be sufficient. So the quality of practice, the engagement in that practice, rather than just thinking that number of golf balls is the answer.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, next question then. If you only had 1 hour a week to improve, how would you spend that?
I'd spend it on the part of the game that needs the biggest improvement, where they have the biggest wins.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, club golfers are pretty crappy from inside 6 feet. Okay. And if you could hold one more putt inside 6 feet around, you're 1 shot better. 2 more, 2 shots better. It's a very binary relationship, and ultimately, lots of golfers don't enjoy practicing their putting, but if you genuinely want to reduce your handicap, being better from 6 feet and in will be a real game changer.
Yeah. Do you think people don't enjoy their putting because they think a little bit too mechanically about improving their putting? Like I used to have just dozens of practice games that I would go around and play and make it more fun, trying to beat my personal bests and stuff like that. I mean, is it more gamifying some of this practice, or is it, or what do you think what do you think stops people from practicing their putting? Is it weather conditions, having to be standing out on a rainy night sometimes, or?
I think most people don't find it that stimulating, and also from a facility perspective, a lot of driving ranges don't have putting greens.
No.
So if you're doing your practice at a driving range and there's not a putting green, you're unlikely to practice it.
Yeah.
I turned myself into a very good putter as a kid through putting indoors, just learning to get really, really good at holding a straight putt.
Oh, yeah.
And then I would practice reading greens and breaking putts when I was at the golf course. Yeah. So I kind of split it up into, okay, Hugh, if you can't hit a straight putt, what chance have you of pulling everything else? I think a lot of it is down to the motivation of the player. It's not that engaging to practice.
Okay. I think I might have been a bit different there. I quite enjoyed my putting practice. But
I mean, I did, and I haven't practiced putting for 30 years. And I'm a much worse putter. Who knew?
Yeah. On the, just a technical question, really, on the sloping lies, do you treat them as a sloping putt, lied putt, or do you treat everything as a straight putt that just happens to come off the line, if that makes sense?
I basically target for a straight putt.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And I mean, that obviously is heavily dependent on how good a green reader the golfer is. Mm. But I just try and aim differently and put the same stroke on it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Okay, so you've got extensive experience with elite players. You've been in Ryder Cup dressing rooms, and what would you say is the biggest difference to how an elite player practices versus a club golfer? Like, what's the standout differences, do you think?
Well, I mean, I could take that a stage further and say there's a difference between the very best golfers in the world and other tour players. It's the same difference. It's level of engagement. It's not a work thing, because to get to tour, you're probably going to have done most of your hard work before the age of 25. Your golf swing's established by then. Yeah. But it's discipline and engagement, and having a plan that you work. It's all very well creating the plan, but you've actually got to go and deliver on that. And the best golfers, I mean, if you look at, I mean, I've got the golf on from Scotland just now. If you look at Rory McIlroy, for example, he doesn't have the time to practice that a 22-year-old first-year pro has. Yeah. Because of all his media engagements, he gets dragged left, right, and centre throughout any tournament week, not just majors. So he then needs to make his practice count.
Yes.
And that requires a plan, discipline, and when you're practicing, you are absolutely engaged in your practice. If you look at your average European Tour driving range, it's basically a boys' club. There's a large percentage of the field just shooting the shit and having a laugh with their mates. And then Rory McIlroy walks on. He's got an hour and a half. He's engaged in it. Yeah. He gets it done and he's gone. Right. So it's. I say it to a lot of my students. I mean, one of the questions I get asked a lot is, how much should I practice? And I said, well, how much time you got? I've got 4 hours a week. So straight away, you can assume he's got 2 hours a week. Right. He's definitely not got 4 hours. So if it's 2 hours a week, I'd far rather they had two 1-hour sessions, or even 3 45-minute sessions, than just one 2-hour block. Because inevitably, as you got to the end of the 2-hour block, they're going to fatigue. Their attention to detail is going to suffer. Their engagement's going to suffer. And then within that plan, if they want you to write a plan, say, okay, well, we're going to spend 15 minutes 6 feet in. We're going to spend half an hour learning to hit the ground in front of the golf ball, or we're going to spend half an hour hitting drivers between 2 posts. Yeah. But it doesn't need to be this extensive, comprehensive plan. Mm. It's just like, right, let's get good at all of this. This is how we're going to do it. It doesn't require 10 hours a week.
No.
This is the time you've got available. Let's be realistic. You've actually got 2 hours. This is how you're going to do it.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, so it's like any other workplace, the high performers are just maximizing their efficiencies and their time that much better than the journeyman.
And that I think that's true in any walk of life.
Yeah.
That go back to the very first point I made. Those that are most engaged with the process improve the quickest.
Mm. So obviously, you're speaking a little bit about like there's not a lot of people don't tend to have a lot of time to practice, busy working lives, family lives, but can you practice too much as well? Can if someone has a lot of time, young person like what we're talking about, and maybe goes out 5 days a week for 8 hours a day practicing, can that be too much? We used to have a term like golfed out, but when I was a kid, I don't know, I've heard it for a long time now, but you could definitely, I think, overdo things and get a little fatigued. But do you think that's
I think that's true of anything in life. I mean, that's what I did as a kid, and not at any point did I get golfed out. I loved every minute of it. I was lucky in that I had just as I said, a big expanse that I could use with a couple of greens on it. I had a good putting green. I had a golf course. So within that 8 hours a day, I always played at least 9 holes every day. Always played with the assistants. So I was playing with golfers that were significantly better than I. And I naturally have a brain that gets easily distracted. But that just meant that I moved location. I went from hitting 6 irons and then decided that, you know what, I'm going to go chip for an hour. You can't physically work for 8 hours and be constructive. But equally, being there for 8 hours and breaking your time up, as long as you're engaged, as long as you're motivated, I don't think you can work too hard. The challenge becomes when we see it a lot with kids these days where they're practicing because they think they have to practice. They're being told to practice by parents and coaches. I didn't do it. I didn't have any exterior pressure. It was literally just I did it because I loved doing it and I wanted to get better.
Yeah, you couldn't pull me away from the practice ground.
No. But I also see it now from our recreational golfers' perspective that if I've got 4 hours a week, I want to go and play golf with my friends. I don't want to practice for 2 hours and not play golf with my friends. And then that feeds into how you coach players. Because if you coach players in the least invasive way possible, you're giving them a chance to take something to the golf course to help them enjoy their round of golf with their friends. I view every lesson, as I've just said, if they tell you they practice for 4 hours, assume it's 2. But I view every lesson as, okay, this guy's not going to practice. So I'm going to give the piece of advice that is going to be most likely to help them without any practice whatsoever. And if they do practice, great, nice bonus.
Yeah. So in what question do you think you would be asking yourself now that would be something that, what would be the most useful for a listener, something that I should have asked you about practice? What do you think that question would be? And can you answer that question?
It's a good question. No, I think, to be honest with you, I think we've covered it. That ultimately practice, if the desire is to improve, then how you practice will be a significant part of that. That doesn't mean that pounding golf balls is a bad thing, because repetition is part of it. But it's understanding all of the different components involved in good practice and making sure that your practice is geared around the part of your game that needs to improve for you to score better. It's having a plan, being engaged in that plan, and delivering on that plan. Like anything in life, it's all very well having a grand plan, but at some point, you're actually going to have to go and put the work in.
Don't do it. So make a plan that's realistic as well.
Yeah. And I think the coaching industry has got a good deal to answer for here, because I think we, by and large, ask too much of our students. We ask them to change too much. We ask them to change too much too quickly. We insist that they practice. We may even say they've got to get worse to get better, all of which I fundamentally disagree with. Good practice will accelerate the process.
Yeah. I think as well, on top of that, I agree completely. On top of that, we'll say to somebody, you need to go and practice this with no structure about, okay, well, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you go to the doctor and he prescribes this medicine, he doesn't just throw the prescription at you and say, take this. He tells you what strength, when, how often, for how long.
Yeah.
That if we're gonna help our students, we have to guide them as to how they're going to get the best out of the time they have available.
Yeah.
A golf lesson for me includes how they're going to practice.
Yes.
If you've got this amount of time, let's use it this way.
I never had that when I was learning the game, when I was taking coaching. Never had that. Do you think that's just sort of cultural? It just happens over decades of golf coaching that this is, that's just how golf coaching's done, and it was never incorporated? Or do we presume they just know how to practice just as we used to practice?
I learned to practice through reading extensively. Just lots and lots of golf books, magazines, old VHS videos. I was consumed by it. I certainly didn't get that direction from the people that were giving me lessons. I'm not going to call them coaches, because they were the club pro who gave me golf lessons. Yeah. Perfectly good golf lessons, but that's all it was. Yeah. Has it changed? I think there's definitely, because the game has embraced sports science, we understand a lot more about how to make improvements.
Yep.
And because sports science is embraced by pretty much every sport at the top level now, we've got more exposure to what other sports are doing. We're not living in our own little golf bubble as much as we were. So guys like Divot, who famously went from a rugby background and then branched out into golf and other sports, his principles apply across any sport. Now, would I have been exposed to them as a 15-year-old? No, not at all. Would our coaches have been exposed to them? No. So it is part of progress. It's evolution.
Hugh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time.
It's a great pleasure.
With me. Let my audience know how they can find you, find out a bit more about you and your teachings, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, geez. You can get me at Hugh Marr Coaching on Instagram, and hughmarr.com is my website. That's simple.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your time.
No, it's a pleasure. Thanks very much, Steve. Thoroughly enjoyed it.